General Manjeet Singh, Joint Secretary, National Security Council Secretary. Mr. Cherian Samuel, Research Fellow, Manohar Parikar, Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. Mr. Mohit Rampal, Founder and CEO, Ramogni Technologies. Now I may request Dr. Arvind Gupta to kindly kickstart the presentation.
Time do we have? So, Namaskar, Namaste, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to be a part of this very happening conference. I can see that a lot of people are attending, and yesterday there was a hackathon. I learned a little bit about this today. So I think we are moving in the right direction. Today we are discussing information warfare and what Russia-Ukraine conflict teaches us. So that's a great topic, although it's probably more like a technical conference, but information warfare is a very large concept of which cyber activity, cyber warfare is one part, and there are many other components. We today have an ongoing war. The war has not ended. The war is extremely brutal, and we are now, the war has pushed us into perhaps a new phase in international politics, perhaps a new world order. And there are many lessons that we have to learn from this war, and probably it will take decades for us to really understand what is going on, because we are still very close to the event. Now, when the war started, for the first few months we thought that where is the cyber? Everybody had been talking about information warfare. I remember I first heard of information warfare way back in 1999 in the National Security Council Secretariat. And since then, in some form or the other, I've been involved with this. So we didn't even know what information warfare was. And now information warfare is actually happening. And of this, cyber is also happening. But the first few months we thought that there may not be. Cyber was probably not very visible, not very active. What happened? So a lot of missiles were flying around, a lot of bombs. So the war was a bit of a surprise. But now I think more and more reports are coming out, and I think there's still a lot of observation. I saw some reports from Microsoft, some from Carnegie, and some other people also. And it seems that cyber has been a very much an integral part of this war. And information and propaganda war, etc., is also a very important part of this war. Ukraine has been, of course, under attack, cyber attacks and information warfare for several, almost a decade now. And certainly many of you would remember in 2015, 2016, there were massive attacks on Ukrainian grid by the Russians. The Russians know the Ukrainian system very well. They have perfected their tools. They have done it in Estonia, they have done it in Georgia, now they are doing it in Ukraine. But this is a live war. And today, the missiles, as well as cyber tools, and of course cyber defense, they are all going hand in hand. Frankly, we don't quite understand what is happening, what is the scale, the way it is being used. So there are many lessons to be learned. Since we don't have much time, I would request my very esteemed participants of this panel discussion to share some ideas, what they think are the lessons generally from this Russia-Ukraine war and specifically for India. So I will stop here, and I will first request Major General Manjeet Singh to make his remarks. I request them to make their initial remarks in about 5 minutes, and then we will have a few questions. I'll ask a few questions perhaps, take a few questions from the audience, and then we'll request them to.
Thank you, sir. And at the very outset, let me thank the DSCI for giving us an opportunity to be here and share our thoughts amongst you all. It's an important issue, the information warfare and what the Russia-Ukraine conflict teaches us. And when I was reading the concept note under that, I found that apart from the information piece, there was a lot of cyber issues which were talked about, and therefore I thought just going back to the basics of revising for all of us, a bit of kind of theoretical issues with respect to the information warfare. When we initially started, information warfare, we started with the EW, PSYOP, cyber, C2W, economic-based warfare, int-based warfare, and all that were the elements of that. And that's how we progressed, and over a period of time, we have evolved in understanding the information warfare. Just a point about the information warfare or the cyber warfare. I feel when we talk about the information warfare, the centrality is information. How do you see information? How do you manipulate information? How do you use information? And I think the target is cognitive. The target is cognitive. So whether it is command and control, the target is cognitive. And when we talk about the cyber, it is the interconnectedness. We use the interconnectedness to do what we do as far as the cyber warfare is concerned. And in the initial definition also, it talked about information warfare with the capability to use information and info systems to your advantage, and disrupt information and information systems of the adversary to your advantage. So from there, if we segregate it, one is a very big piece of information, and the second is the cyber or the connectedness or the information systems, wherein you protect your own information systems and disrupt the others' information system, wherein a whole lot of electronic warfare or the cyber warfare and things like that will flow. So that is something which I wanted to talk about right in the beginning. And information through the cyber medium. Why the cyber medium is a preferred medium? Because of the interconnectedness is one, and the speed at which your message can really proliferate. You do a tweet and see the numbers which grow. Within seconds, it is all across the world. So it moves at the speed of light. So information warfare or the use of information through the medium of cyber is a preferred medium. And the way if you look at the social media platforms, the way they have proliferated, it's in everybody's lives today. So that is how I think we need to interpret the information warfare and the cyber warfare and the use of the connectedness. The second issue I wanted to talk about was because we'll be touching on the lessons of the Ukraine conflict, is with respect to the geopolitics and how do what has happened in the past, bit about that there has been a paradigm shift in the global world order, and there has been huge amount of alignments and realignments in the past, as you would have seen. And what is driving that shift? There are a few major factors which is driving that shift, and the first one is the governance structures across the world. We have varied forms of governance or governments across the world. The second is technology in a big way is driving the geopolitics of today. The dependencies, the interdependencies on each other is something which make your alignments and realignments happen. Also the niche skill sets, the power of HR. The power of HR also drives the geopolitics. And then obviously the socio-economic considerations will also play into how exactly the geopolitics play. So these were some basic thoughts on these issues I thought I'll cover. And maybe on the specifics of Russia-Ukraine conflict, sir, I think maybe we can come in the next round, on the next round. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take up these issues a little later. And now I request Dr. Cherin Samuel, who is a research fellow at the IDSA, to make his remarks. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Again, thank you to DSCI, and the pleasure to be on the dais with you, sir. We've worked together. Yes, when it comes to this conflict, it is, I think, a I don't know if fascinating is the right word to use, but it's been a fascinating 10 months for practitioners in cybersecurity, because this is the first time that you're actually seeing an active conflict, cyber conflict, keeping a pace with the kinetic conflict. And I think it has more or less upended a lot of the preconceptions that we had prior to this conflict, both in the military domain as well as in the cybersecurity domain. And there are any number of lessons that we can take back, even though, like you said, it's early days. On the military side, I think there has always been this, as Major General Manjeet Singh mentioned, there's this, I mean, you conflate information warfare and cyber warfare. So they are both increasingly, quite separate, and militaries have to really decide which aspect they should focus on. Now, in the case of Russia, I think the Russians have generally focused largely on information warfare, disinformation, disruption, and so on, which seems to work very well in a kind of low-intensity scenario where you can keep on doing this. But when it comes to an active conflict, this doesn't seem to have worked very well, which is why you see, I think, partly the reason why you see the outcomes that you have, where everyone's dumbstruck, thinking, they all expected that the Russians would walk all over the Ukrainians, that the cyber conflict would be over even before the physical conflict began. But they have not really been able to do much. I think what happened was that because the Ukrainians have been under attack for so long, even though the Russians thought that this was theirs to control, they have not really been able to have it the way they like. And this, I also think, would not have been possible without the active assistance of a large number of private corporations and governments. So the Ukrainians were able to scale up their counter response much better than the Russians were able to actuate these responses. And in the cybersecurity domain also, you see that what you're seeing is the collaboration between the private and public sector, I wouldn't say public, but within the private sector and governments, has really proven to be very, very important, where you have a large number of government agencies, not just in the Ukraine, but across the world, working together with the private companies like Microsoft, and very actively. Like just the other day I saw that Microsoft is contributing $400 million to this. I mean, normally you think in terms of governments, the US government giving money, but here is a private company that is contributing to the effort in the Ukraine. So I think there are many lessons to be learned here, and we could go into greater detail later, but
Thank you, Chair. Very important point you made about Microsoft, and we need this point to be discussed a little bit later. But now let me request Mr. Mohit Rampal, who is a founder and CEO of, what's the name of the company? Ramogini Technologies, please.
Sure, sir. Thank you. I'm just going to pick up points from General Singh and Mr. Gupta and Dr. Cherians. We talked about information. Spreading information is good. I'm just going to go back to 1980s. There was one country called USSR, as we learned in school. It disintegrated. The reason I'm talking about it is that you're looking at an adversary and you're looking at the defendant. Who's the adversary and who's the defendant right now is a question mark in my mind, honestly, right? Why? Because once upon a time they were a single country. So the adversary exactly knows the entire techniques, tactics, as you can say, MITRE frameworks of the active actors, state actors present in Russia or Ukraine. So they're all prepared of every activity. Whether you're talking about a defense or an offense, it's there. So the first thing about information warfare is, I did my undergrad long before, right? Not as old as you guys, seniors, sir. But cyberspace has spread across drastically. We still wonder about Ukraine and Russia, but we also don't forget, we have I call it as a friendly Spider-Man across our border, who does still control 70% of the cyberspace because all the hardware originates from there. That's another question. We're talking about information warfare. Do they have trapdoors and backdoors? Yes, they do have. I worked in a company which was into cryptography, and the first thing I learned was, I won't take names, but if there is an algo made, there's a decryption already ready with the USDOD, for example. If they have it, so does the Spider-Man have it. So question goes back again, who's the adversary? Who is the defendant? Now we are talking about both of them know each other's tactics in and out, left, right, and center. So if I was to put myself in the face of the one of those countries, I know exactly. Estonia, for example, we all mentioned about. We also know about Stuxnet. We also know about all these are all incidents which have happened in the past. Information warfare is what's going to happen. Targeted warfare. I was just having a chat with one of my colleagues. Everybody talks about drones. What else can we do? Instead of being productive, they're being used to destroy. For example, if we were to be able to get a DNA synthesis of any specific human being, I can use a drone attack as information warfare because I have the information of what can get him down, a state political actor, right? So this is where we are moving towards a complete information warfare where you have two countries who know each other in and out. So it's going to be like, who's got a stronger willpower, who's got a stronger force, who's got a stronger backup. Like we just mentioned, $400 million coming to you, to one country, right? Maybe somebody else gives them another $1 billion. So that competition will go. The arms race has now moved to the information warfare race. So nobody's going to be selling arms. They're going to sell, my technology or my threat intelligence or my products are much better than yours. So I'm going to give you my technology for the next 3 years. So that's my perception on the cyber side, sir.
Good. So some excellent points have been made by three speakers. How information and cyber, they are related and how they have their own domains. That's something that General Manjeet Singh said. Private sector and public sector, how they have come together, that's the point Sherin has made. And how we are now seeing these distinctions between the hard military and the information, they are now blurring. Yeah, so now we'll take a few questions and then we'll go back to our, yeah. Please make it, request to all of you, please make it pointed and brief, whatever you have to say.
Hi everyone, very good afternoon. I'm Raja Kannan from TCS. Regarding the global situational awareness, I would like to take the point from Cherian. From the organization wise, yes, we put a lot of controls from preventive controls, identify detections, whatever it is actually. Maybe we are writing some rules and security tools to identify any traffic or something. Maybe we put some controls. From country wise, I think you clearly mentioned the collaborations. That's very important. What are the challenges you face to implement some control from the organization, people, and employee or employer, whatever it is actually? How we implement these controls? I'm sure we implemented to identify any suspicious traffic. But I just would like to understand the challenges. What are the challenges you would like to share to us? This is the challenges we are facing to implement this control from the layer, organization, employee, employer, or people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. When we talk about public-private partnership, when you get more granular, the question that is asked is, okay, that's all fine, but how do you kind of actualize it? And I think what happens is that the private sector thinks the public sector, the government should take the initiative. The government thinks the private sector should take the initiative. At least in the United States, what I see is that the government agencies have said that we will figure out what the threats are, but it is the private sector's job to come out with the solutions. And so that is where the focus is. Well, I'm not a technical person, so you would have to. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
Excuse me, sir. I have a question for General Manjeet. Okay. Sir, how are we looking at information warfare in India? Like the Indian Army had an information warfare brigade till about a decade back. which was stood down. And now we have had the AIMS attack also, which is a very public event. So is the government looking at something which is going to tackle the information warfare in its entirety? All aspects like PSYOP, cyber warfare, defense.
Thank you for that question. I think information warfare is very close to our heart, and it is being met with treatment at the national level as also at the defense services level. We have basic policies and strategies in place. There are governance structures also in place to address each of these issues, but any endeavor, the government cannot do it alone. It will have to be participative, it will have to be a whole of nation approach. And there is a role and responsibility for every citizen, every business, every government, be it central government or the state government. So everyone has a role to play in building up resilience to our basic ecosystem, and also have lots of cyber hygiene, lots of hygiene in terms of what we share, how do we, what is required to be shared, what is not to be shared, how do we put these things into practice. So it's going to be a whole of nation approach, and I think we are moving in the right direction.
So my question to Major General. So just like in a physical war, we have like insider threats. So in a typical cyber warfare also, like in India, we have so many internal threats happening. Like there are so many phishing mails, phishing calls coming to citizens of India. So in that respect, what is government of India doing in order to thwart those internal threats?
Okay, I think when you talk of the phishing per se, one cannot say that it's an insider. The phishing could come from anywhere. However, there are, in order to address what our common citizen faces in terms of the frauds and especially financial frauds, we have come up with Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, I4C, which runs a portal that's called the National Cyber Reporting Portal. And apart from that, there is a helpline 1930. So both the options are available as far as the reporting of the cyber crimes per se is concerned. As far as the phishing attacks are concerned, there are, as far as the government infrastructure is concerned, there are various tools and technologies being put into practice at the service provider level. And apart from that, the cyber hygiene is what I said earlier, that I think it's again a whole of nation. Everyone has to contribute, everyone has a role and responsibility towards ensuring that they do not fall prey to these kind of attacks. This can come from anywhere, this can come definitely from the insiders, this can also come out from anywhere on the globe, because there are no boundaries, we are all living in an interconnected world. I hope that answers to some.
Sir, my question is for General Singh. Actually, talking about information operations and all of that, if you observe the certs, if you observe the US certs, or if you observe the Australia certs or UK certs, they openly attribute whatever incidents are there or vulnerabilities are there to state actors, wherever they've detected it from. But if we observe India's cert, they do not, tend to openly attribute if it's a state threat or state APT actor. So don't you think if we also have a strategy, because for their certs, they see it as their information ops, like letting that information pass that, okay, this state conducted those operations. But I mean, if we also tend to do that, if we do that, it would also be part of our information, decimation. So, yeah, basically.
A good question. When we work on the attribution, there are two issues. One is the technical attribution, and the second is a contextual attribution. As far as the technical attribution is concerned, we have systems in place. However, you normally fall short because it's the last IP which you get. And therefore, you require a lot of collaborative efforts to really go into the technical attribution part of it, for which adequate amount of collaborative efforts are being made with our like-minded countries all across the globe. That's happening. And secondly, second issue is the contextual, which is based on the geopolitics, the situations in our neighborhood, the situation in our region. That also lends to, and also over a period of time, you develop the intelligence to know as to what is happening and who's behind a particular attack. As far as public naming and shaming is concerned, I know there are some countries who are open about naming and shaming, and but again, it's a political decision to do public naming and shaming, especially with respect to those who share land borders with us. So sometimes there are restrictions on what is to be attributed. There are some restrictions on that. Otherwise, taking into account the technical attribution and the contextual attribution, I think there are ways and means to reach to the threat actor.
I think the important point is that you should have the capabilities of attribution. Whether we name or not name is, as he said, is a different issue. Any other question? Okay, here.
Sir, I have one basic question. This is related to, in India, if you look at tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, creating awareness on information security and data privacy and PI data laws or financial laws. At tier 1 cities, it might be a bit easier. When you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, even a person who didn't even pass 10th standard, a smartphone is being utilized. So for creating awareness across India, so what are there any initiatives taken by Government of India?
Yes, there are various initiatives. One is we run info security education and awareness project. It's run by the Ministry of Electronics and IT, wherein there are varied type of awareness campaigns which are conducted. Apart from that, there are various courses which are run for the government officials, which are pitched at the basic level and at advanced level. So for the law enforcement, for all the officials in various states and ministries, there is a whole lot of big program. It's about 200 crore project, and it has been happening for last about 10 years. The next phase of that is also on. There are varied awareness campaigns as part of that. The campaigns are also being launched by the Ministry of Home Affairs through the I4C, which is Indian Cybercrime Coordination Cell. There are various campaigns which are run by them. They utilize all kind of mediums, be it the social media or the print media or the electronic media, all are utilized for that. Yeah. And aim is to reach out to the last man, last mile.
You see, the problem here is, while there are a number of these institutions, but they're still in infancy. We need to really work hard, more, for instance, the institutions that he has mentioned were supposed to be creating awareness. But how many of you knew about them? I've been doing cyber security for now more than 2 decades. But we find that when you go to the portals, etc., there is a need, but I think they're on the right track. These things that he mentioned, they were all part of our 2013 cyber security policy. So government has been thinking about it. But now the challenge is, given the fact that the cyber security threats have become so huge, firstly, whether that approach needs to be changed. Time is of essence. Now, AIMS attack is really I mean, we are learning lessons from Russia-Ukraine war, but before that, we should learn lessons from our AIMS attack itself. So the government is really, or the people even, for that matter, all of us, are really racing against time. People outside are not sitting idle. So I think this collaboration between citizens and the government and amongst the citizens, pressure, etc., all this, it's a very big issue. I mean, by just putting one institution, CERT was created way back in 2004. But if, you know, how many resources the institutions have? That is, I think, issue. But please ask questions of my other panelists also, otherwise they will feel that they have been neglected. Yes, 1 and 2. So very quickly, very briefly. I'll come to you in a moment. Yeah. We have a few minutes left now, so then.
Hi, this is for any of the panelists. So, as a cybersecurity professional in the private sector, what would be your advice, the 3 things that we must do to prevent information warfare?
Great question. This is for you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Again, for anyone who can answer. I represent CERT grid operation. Now, when there are a lot of talks going on for CERT and its activity, while implementation of various controls and various measures which a CERT wants to do, we have seen there's a huge gap between the states and the center, the funding, the resources available with the states. So is there any comprehensive plan to pull up the state to that same level or maybe with certain fundings, with certain resources where we can have this readiness for the cyber warfare pan-India?
You can later on answer it. I'll just take a few questions. Any for Mr. Rampal? Any question for Mr. Rampal? I think yeah, you should, of course. This is for all the panelists. But any other questions? Yes, please. I think यहाँ पे किसी ने हाथ उठाया था शायद. You were there, yeah.
Sir, my question is that conflicts world over are increasing, increasing day by day, and the information warfare is the one which is shaping the narrative and taking the, conflict in a different dimension altogether. And for this, as has been highlighted, it is a whole of nation approach which is required in this particular domain, though it is in all other, but it is in this particular domain, whole of nation approach is required. Do we have structures and mechanism in place in India which has got a huge potential in this domain to tap that thing, the soft power we have? Do we have those structures and potential?
Thank you. One last question I'll take and then I'll go back to the panelists. Yeah. Okay. So, आपसे शुरू करते हैं. Please take all these questions and anything else that you want to say. You have 2 minutes.
No, I was just, I'm just going to take 4 of them together and try and address them. We are talking about India, right? We are talking about, in terms of cyber, very honestly, we are way behind most of the countries, including our friendly neighborhood. I was working in a company where I had gone to Shenzhen. They have got a building which is like 40 stories, and you name it, they have it. You name a device, they have it. So they are far ahead of us, right? We're not even still there. Now, the reason being is there's a lot of education which is being pushed across. So even if I look at ourselves right now, the quality of our education system in terms of cyber is far, far behind. I have people in this room who can vouch whatever I say is right or wrong. I've seen, I won't take names, but whatever is transferred to the student is very, very elementary. You're expecting a hacker to go and hack and he leaves his trails behind. It takes 30 seconds for the country which has been hacked to go and back and say, this guy came from this and this IP location. So these are tracks which have to be trained. Now, addressing your question about education in India, right? We need to change our system. Now, you're talking about way back of having people in remote areas. If you want to have them in remote areas, there are ways to do it. We still haven't, I'm not a government person, right? But there are people I know in the government side who are pushing across for education to be passed on to the last mile, which is, have cyber education. Now, cyber education of dissemination of information, I think the government is doing a great job of publishing things that people don't read a newspaper of getting a phishing attack. Even if you're getting an SMS, you still open the SMS, you still put it on your phone, put it on your WhatsApp, share it to 100 friends. You can't do it. You can't blame the government for not doing it. We are doing everything as a government. They're doing everything, right? That's the first question. Second is, how do you want to address the education system? Now, cyber education, we've got a lot of universities come up. We had National Forensics, GFSU now as National Forensics, right? I was lucky enough, I was instrumental in setting up that entire cyber training center. They've opened a couple of half a dozen more. But again, the quality of education, you may have the bestest of tools, I would use the words. But you got to have people to understand how to use them and train them. I give you a gun. I was just talking to General. Though I don't have a defense background, I give you a gun. Nobody sells a gun to kill. It says defend. Nobody in the arms industry will say it's meant for killing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And there is a dearth of manpower in government sector, everyone knows about it. Funds, even though not an issue, but still we have to see where we have to put the money in. But I expect the same thing when we say we have to build synergy with academia, industry and all. I will request if some thought process in that direction go. Industries looking for return of investment.
Sure.
If they can pitch in their manpower, their skill set to the local area people, schools, colleges, and spend in a month, day or two, in those particular education institution to provide that input or education and awareness in the area of cyber security to go a long way. And government is anyway going to support them in this initiative, and in turn, return of investment will come to them. It will come to them in manifold in time to come. That is my suggestion.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know if I can give 2 or 3, but I think the first thing is, as the gentleman said, you should, as a cybersecurity professional, you have knowledge and skill sets that are not available to a large percentage of the population. The whole of society approach we talk about essentially means you educate all those around you. So I think you have to get out of your silos. Google, for instance, I think they give you 5% of your own time to do your own thing. If your company doesn't allow that, ask them to do so. See how you can contribute to this. If nothing else works, start your own company, which focuses on how to do this. There's a treasure trove of information now about the Ukraine conflict. When I say get out of your silos, I meant look at all that, see how it applies to us, your own inputs. Any number of things I think that can be done.
Yeah, I just want to pick up from the Ukraine conflict. There was a huge war of narratives. We've talked about that. And there was a concept of advanced persistent manipulator teams, wherein you pre-position your narratives and bring it out at the opportune time, similar to advanced persistent. Here we should bring in the greatest lesson for all of us, and that is resilience. We need to build our own cyber ecosystem, right from manufacturing to the hardware to the software to building products, solutions, and that is where we would like to encourage the private sector. This particular warfare is not of military alone. This is a special warfare. It's not a conventional warfare, conventional operations. This is where we all have to be involved. It's a whole of nation approach. It's a hybrid warfare, wherein we are all equal stakeholders in this, and you're aware of the supply chain issues which bug us all in every critical sector of ours, and that is where I would appeal to all the private sector to come up, the startups to come up. The government is ready with a number of initiatives, a number of missions, through spending from the R&D funds, through spending from various missions, right, from quantum missions to cyber physical system missions, the startups, the incubation centers, the R&D centers. You need to hook on to this, and I think together as a public-private partnership or as a complete private sector endeavor, whichever way, we need to build our complete ecosystem of our own to build so much of resilience into our own country. That's all.
Great. I think we had some superb comments by the professionals and practitioners. Now, for me, the most important lesson from this war for India is that we can't now take it lying down anymore. I would have thought that just see, you had a Tawang episode just 2-3 days ago. Nobody has connected it with AIMS, though there have been reports that probably maybe some Chinese hackers, etc., might have been after that, but that's only media reports. But it's not unreasonable to expect that some foreign adversary would have been there. Now, if Russia-Ukraine war is when we are seeing that the actual conflict, which is going on, the military conflict, and the cyber are combined. Now, this thing can happen in India also. Today, our security environment is quite complex, complicated. We have a China-Pakistan axis. We have seen what happened in Galwan. And this Yangtze incident shows clearly that China is not going to bother about these 16 rounds of military commander level talk. And they are feeling very assertive. They are locked into a battle for supremacy with the US. And US, they say India as being tilting towards the US, etc. There can be many other reasons. So we must see this. This is a wake-up call. In fact, I would have thought that our parliament would discuss properly the whole issue of the cybersecurity environment, but also there ought to be a discussion on information warfare, cybersecurity. We have been at cybersecurity for the last 20 years. We need to show some urgency. Everybody understands. I think the solutions are there. It is not rocket science as to what we have to do, whether it's education, awareness, whether it is our private sector, public sector partnership, whether it is our supply chains. So everybody knows what is to be done, but it has to be done. Now the time is running out. And this war, you see, if you look at this war, I think the Russians, of course, have been attacking Ukraine for a very long time. And they are doing it very professionally. According to reports that I have seen, and I'm sure you have also seen, something like 48 Ukrainian agencies were targeted. And something like 100 plus intrusions were done outside Ukraine by the Russians. This conflict can actually lead to NATO invoking Article 5, because today cyber domain is considered as yet another domain of warfare by NATO doctrine. And there is this Article 5 which says cyber attack on one member country can be a cyber attack on the whole. They have not yet done it, but tomorrow one doesn't know what happens. So we are going into uncharted territory. So I think this is one lesson that we can't lose time anymore, and everybody, whether it is within the government or outside, have to show some urgency. The second point here is that resilience is so very important, defending is so very important, and in this I think Ukrainians have succeeded to quite an extent. But how have they succeeded? They have succeeded because they have been building their resilience for a long time. And today it's not one country, the whole NATO, their Center for Excellence, etc., is with them. Also officially they are with them, and as he said, $400+ million only Microsoft has put in for Ukraine effort. $400 million is 40 crore into 80, 3,200 crore rupees for just one effort. 3,200 crore rupees. You just compare it with our how much is our own industry putting in? That is the second point. That means today the companies, these are the combatants, are they civilian companies? So we are again in uncharted territory. What is the status of these companies who are, and they are the most advanced because they own, they are giving threat intelligence to it. Starlink, that provided so many satellites for the communication when it was attacked by the Russians. So we are, I think our military, etc., we have several institutions, but we need to pay a far greater attention and far more quickly. And I think this whole of nation approach will come, should happen, but it's not going to happen. Whole of nation? I mean, just imagine in our nation how big it is. So I think all of us will have to keep on doing our bit. Cyber hygiene is very important. I think responsibility of a citizen. Like when you walk on a road, it is your responsibility. They can only put the red lights there or traffic lights there. But it is your duty to make sure. But I don't know how do we do it. And I think particularly, CERT is the oldest institution. But I have great respect for it. and great regard for the people who work there. But when I go to CERT website, it's not citizen friendly. So we must create some citizen friendly sets, websites. So and I did not know about this helpline that you said. I'll try and find out what this helpline does. But I think governments and the people have to reach out, and similarly the citizens have to become more aware. And finally, the industry. I think industry has a big role. They have to put some money in the cyber security. They are going to be, and here there is big industry and there is small industry. What do you do with the small industry? What do you do a person who is a grocer or who is, a tourist company, travel company, etc. So we have to really make sure that cyber security is which is available in the mall. But it is very expensive. Today, all the developers, when they develop new software, etc., they don't put cyber security there. All the people who are doing the hardware, they don't put cyber security there. I think there has to be certain law also. The industry also has to come out. There has been this industry associations, Microsoft, some 50, 60 companies have joined to be more responsible. Those who are providing the TSPs, and everybody has to really fight this battle. Otherwise, we'll be discussing this in seminars and nothing much will come out. I hope that this lesson which you are drawing from Russia-Ukraine war, we must, Russia, Ukraine, we should Pakistan, China, India, and then see what lessons are there for us. So thank you very much. We are almost there, and we had a wonderful discussion, and thank you very much for participating. Namaskar. Goodbye.